want to stay on transportation for a few more minutes, and I want to welcome to the stage two people that I have a high amount of respect for. Thea Walsh from the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission and Robyn Bancroft from the Ohio, Kentucky, Indiana Regional Council of Governments. Essentially what we're going to do here, they're going to give a brief intro as it relates to what they're working on in this space. And I think it's really important that as we start, we paint a clear picture. What role do councils of governments play, MPOs, RPOs, and how can municipal governments, NGOs, and private sector companies be better collaborators with organizations such as MORPC and OKI? Because I think that there's a big disconnect around that understanding, and I think that regional councils can really unlock a lot of potential as it relates to creating collaborative smart regions. So anyway, with that, I'll kind of give it to you guys to just guide the conversation.
So Robyn and I both work for metropolitan planning organizations, which are also part of regional councils. In my case, I work in the Central Ohio area, which is Columbus, and Robyn is our representative, or represents OKI, which is the regional council down here in Cincinnati. I know we're working quite a bit in that smart space, and so that's why we were really interested in what's going on in Smart Cincy. We want to learn as much as we can about how we can help our communities, and we hope in turn that we can share our lessons learned with organizations like ours and like OKI in Cincinnati. We work with all the local governments. We focus on transportation planning, energy planning, public policy, and data management, data and mapping management. We get a large amount of funds every year, as does OKI, and we distribute those to our region for transportation projects. And what we've seen lately is actually that the investment strategy around that investment we're making in our region is actually changing, because communities are wanting to start to spend that money in a different way. Maybe it's on connected signalization systems, or connected roads, or smart transportation projects, or preemption for their signalization system. The projects are no longer just kind of plain Jane mill and fill roads, or just your standard transit bus. It may actually have other components. It may be smaller. It might be microtransit. You know, there's this whole new world we're coming into. And as a result of that, we've actually been working on a project known as a Smart Region Task Force. And through that, we're looking at how these projects, or how we're going to change the way we do business to help our local governments and partners who partner with them in order to be successful at the projects of the future in transportation. I know Robyn shared earlier some really exciting stuff that OKI is doing, but I don't know if you kind of want to give a rundown of what OKI is up to, and then we'll kind of go back and forth on just what's going on.
That sounds good. I think a good way of talking about when we talk about transportation, something Thea mentioned is what MPOs, what we do is we receive the federal funding every year for different programs. So OKI, on average, we have about $40 million a year that goes to surface transportation improvements. We currently have a call for projects out right now to our Ohio and Kentucky members. Not just members, but public sponsors. I must say, to access federal dollars, you must be or must have a public sponsor. So we cannot give funding directly to, for example, I mentioned earlier, I'm a big freight person. I deal with freight here in the region. We would never award directly a Norfolk Southern Railroad or a CSX, but Norfolk and CSX might have a public sponsor, such as the Ohio Rail Development Commission. That's a public sponsor, and the money funnels through there. So our current call for projects, something that's brand new at OKI that we just did in the last few months, we have a prioritization process or a scoring process. So when we have a call for projects that's out on the streets, we score them so that the most valuable, most beneficial projects score, obviously, the highest. And we created a criteria to the process around technology. So this was our means as a first, I see it as a baby step, just a way of encouraging. As Thea has mentioned, we're seeing more non-traditional transportation projects, but we want to really support applicants to think outside the box, not to go too crazy, flying car. I'm not expecting any flying cars or anything in any proposals, but to look at advanced materials. There's amazing products that are now available that might cost more up front, but maintain the life of a roadway or a bridge much longer, and in the long run save millions of dollars, as well as staff time having to go back out and repair a bridge or highway. So we want to encourage everything from, that could be self-healing asphalt that's on the market. That could be microtransit. It could be connected and autonomous vehicles. OKI is very interested, and we're in lots of conversations with partners across the region. We want to invest in pilot projects and help this conversation along to see what will work. And we have, whether it's University of Cincinnati or CVG, we have environments where these pilot projects can be run, and we can play them out. So we're hoping with this new scoring criteria that we see some applicants come through that have considered and felt supported in those efforts. We've also electronified all of our application processes now online. So, and our data, both of our agencies,
Yes.
That's one thing, we are very data rich.
Yes.
And whether that's traffic volumes or safety data, truck percentages, I mean, anything and
All
everything.
the census and federal information.
All
yes.
of that, all the stuff they need to fill out their application. So we've automated it as much as possible for them to make it that much easier to apply for funds. So that's some of the low-hanging fruit things that we've done of late at OKI. And I think the other thing that we've just been talking about all day is being in partnership and being in conversations, because you don't know where that next opportunity might come along for partnering.
I totally agree. One thing that's come out of our Smart Region Task Force, we actually haven't changed our policies yet. You guys are ahead of us. That's right. We can copy. So we're working on something known as a Smart Streets policy in Columbus, and it won't actually go into our policies right away. But the idea being that whenever a roadway is being torn up for construction, that it also would be considered through our program, if it was a funded project through us, not like a blanket over the entire region. But if the roadway's already going to be torn up, why not go ahead and consider broadband installs or other smart infrastructure installs at that time, and actually doing a set aside in our funding, which we also have about $40 million in funding approximately every year, and so that we know that we'll have funds available for those smart implementation pieces. So that's just a little piece we're doing. Any questions, I guess, about what regional councils do or how we could help you? And we're here all the rest of the day to answer those. All right, well, I think.
Thank you guys, that was great.